in my opinion, a good chunk of them wouldn't.
Vince Mailey might
but,
not.
Again, I don't see it the way that Ray Farmer does, and I don't have as much riding on it. You go with the old cowboy adage, you die with your boots on, and I think Farmer's going to go with the guys that he brought to the dance, and if they don't make it, then he can honestly say, hey, I made a good faith effort. I did a lot of things, to help try and win, help this team try and win. And if that's not the case, at least I went out with my guys. I honestly think that's what's going to happen. I don't see him, and I think that's a big reason why Phil Taylor got let go, because he was Tom Heckert's guy. He was not a Ray Farmer guy, and they felt if they were going to make a huge cut and pay somebody guaranteed money, it wasn't going to be on somebody that they brought in so they could look bad. They're going to try and make Tom Heckert look bad. And you know what? That's just another first-round pick, regardless of who made it, that failed to pan out for this team long term.
Julio Jones
and that
draft. What
can't happen, because you've got two more coming down the pike at least, in Justin Gilbert and possibly Manziel, and you just let go of another one. So you've had two first-rounders that you got right since '99, and that's Joe Thomas and Alex Mack, both of whom are likely on the backside of their careers with the Browns. Thomas on the backside of his NFL career for sure, and Mack with a player option after this season will not be back in Cleveland, and that's exactly why Cam Irving is in Cleveland right now.
As a draft, and Danny Shelton drafted in the first, he looks like he's going to be a stud, but the trouble, Matt, is, all right, hey, I totally respect and get and support building through the offensive line, through the defensive line. Start, get strong there. There's no playmakers. Like, Joe Thomas isn't going to go run 40 yards down the field and catch me a touchdown pass. No, it's not going to happen. That's where this team continues to struggle. And before we get any more into that, by the way, you're listening to the Dawg House. You can tweet us your thoughts on the roster cuts, who should, who shouldn't make it, at AndyMC81, at Matt Fleur-Jancic. Email thedoghouseshow@gmail.com. One of our Dawg House questions we put out there on Twitter was, who should be the Browns' backup quarterback week one? If, assuming both are healthy, if Johnny's elbow's back together and working, is it Johnny Manziel or is it Thaddeus Lewis? On this depth roster, you have Johnny as the backup. And don't get me wrong, hey, I'm not surprised. There's no way they're cutting Johnny Manziel. But as far as a week one guy, so you only see two quarterbacks being kept on the roster here.
I do. I see one being kept on practice squad basis. It's going to be a guy that they claim off the waiver wire.
Okay.
And add, Mike Pettin was very adamant that he wants three quarterbacks in the building at all times. Connor Shaw's done for the year. I don't think Thad Lewis makes this roster. I think he showed some ability to make good decisions, but also struggled a bit last night. And I don't see Pat Devlin making this roster just because he hasn't been here long enough. So I think they're going to try and get a third quarterback off of somebody's roster that's actually played a lot during the preseason and is practice squad eligible. That's how they ran it last year, and I would imagine they would do much the same this year.
Right, and Thaddeus Lewis, for those who aren't sure, is not practice squad eligible, so that's not an option for Thaddeus Lewis. I would like to see, personally, if you're going to go that route and let Thaddy Lou go, and look for a practice squad option, if the Bears release David Fales. I liked him coming out of the draft a year ago in Johnny's draft. Not to say take him over Johnny, but I like the skill set he brought, and he looked good last night. Like, that would be somebody, if I'm the Browns and the Bears release him, gobble him up as fast as possible.
Sure. I mean, it sounds like a great plan, and if he's eligible to be that practice squad guy, you absolutely take a stab at him. I mean, there's no harm in putting a guy on the practice squad and seeing what he can do from a rep standpoint on the scout team. And it's a good option to have because you've seen what he can do in a game against your defense, regardless of if it was Bland or in the fourth preseason game or not. You know what you're going to get out of the kid, and that, I think, is important, especially because you don't yet know what's going to happen with Manziel.
No.
Expect them to keep three. I kept two with a practice squad spot reserved for a quarterback, but if Manziel gets reevaluated today, which is how it's supposed to be, and they're still not confident, they have to keep Thad Lewis.
Right.
And then they have to cut somewhere else. I went with the assumption that Johnny is going to be the number two, and he's going to be okay based off of the reports that I've heard and hearing what the team has to say. That's a big assumption, but I still don't think the third quarterback for this team's on the roster yet. I think that'll be something that happens in the next 48 to 72 hours.
Right, and for Fales, he has that connection with New Browns offensive coordinator John DeFilippo from their time together at San Jose State, so there's another little link there. Let's quickly take a look at the defensive side of your depth chart here, Matt, and you. So that was the offense, and we rolled down as far as surprises go. I'm still a little taken back that Phil Taylor was actually released with the money owed. You have Billy Wynn making the roster. He's a bubble guy. You have Justin Gilbert, obviously, I think, because, again, that would be egg on their face. And Scott Solomon as well making the roster. Anybody that you kind of were on the bubble on as far as who was going to make the team?
Barkevius Mingo. I know people are surprised to hear that, but that's another first-round pick.
It's not
that
this
one from Michael Lombardi and Joe Banner that I think is going to be one of the guys that is heavily discussed. He might be if he's cut, he'll be the 54th guy. You know, that's kind of how close it is for him right now, and that would be very, very interesting to see him go because, again, another failed first-round pick, and the Browns seem to be stockpiling those by the gross. And I really struggled to put him on the roster, but with Nate Orchard's situation up in the air right now, it looked to me like they needed to keep a fourth edge rushing linebacker. Scott Solomon for sure is a starter. Paul Kruger's for sure a starter. But those backup spots really gave me fits when I was making this depth chart because I really, really, really thought that Mingo could be cut. But with Orchard having issues, I had to put him on the roster. If he's not on the roster, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And Justin Gilbert was the other one that I really struggled with. Him and Pierre Desir both, actually, if you want to get technical. I thought
Desir too.
I thought Desir was a lock to make this team.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
But the hamstring, keeping him out early in the preseason, and the concussion now, I could see him getting cut. I really, really could. And then seeing if they could try to get him onto the practice squad. But I don't know that they're going to want to keep two corners that are injured and unable to produce. And unfortunately for Desir, you're a fourth-round pick. He's a first-rounder, top 10 pick. He's going to get more benefit of the doubt and every opportunity to succeed more so than you are. And those are two positions I really struggled at, outside linebacker and corner. I have him keeping a lot of corners. I have him keeping a lot of D linemen, and I have him keeping a lot of linebackers. I think 8, and then, if I do quick math, I think I have him keeping 11 secondary members, which is one short of what they kept last year because they started the 53-man roster with 12. And the only reason I put that many DBs on there is because you have to have quality depth, especially if you're going to try and get anything out of Justin Gilbert. You have to know going in that anything you get out of him is a bonus, and you have to have a bona fide backup plan right away because if he fails, you got to get him out of there. And I think he'll struggle if he's given an opportunity to play, and I think the veteran safeties, Tashawn Gibson and Dante Whitner, are probably going to be the most vocal to the coaches saying that he needs to get off the field.
They have been already. They have been already. And we know, hey, Mike Benton loves his cornerbacks, loves depth at cornerback. So that's no surprise there. But as far as Justin Gilbert, man, I just don't see him doing much this year outside of an emergency situation, being put into a game. Or and other than that, probably trying to return kicks like that. Other than that, that's it.
If he's your third corner, you're in deep trouble. The waters are gonna, sink the boat really quickly. He proved that he couldn't defend Marcus Wheaton last year.
No.
Does anybody in this town know who Marcus Wheaton is?
I took him in my fantasy draft because of that game.
Yeah, you take him when he's playing the Browns and he's lining up against Justin Gilbert, but then you release him the next week.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it goes. Justin Gilbert didn't show me anything when he was healthy, and he's been hurt for 3 weeks. So that tells me that his confidence is completely blown, and at this point, it's anything you get out of him at any point in his career, you have to look at as a bonus. You can't rely on this kid. He's absolutely unreliable as a teammate on the field. You can't trust him to do his assignments. He gets twisted too much. He thinks he's playing with good technique, but then he goes out there and he does something that shows you that he doesn't know what he's doing. You can't rely on somebody like that. And for him to still be on this roster when they're going to be deserving guys who get the pink slip, that's disgusting.
That's politics, man. That is politics with Ray Farmer and a first-round pick. Just a couple minutes left here, Matt. Let's get to the bark-off and hear what people were saying on Twitter to us and via email. So it is time, yes. The bark-off. At AndyMC81 on Twitter, at Matt Florjancic. Email the doghouseshow at gmail.com. Have from Mitch in Buffalo who emailed in, and it was in relation to our question. If both are healthy, who's your backup QB week 1 against the New York Jets? Johnny Manziel or Thaddeus Lewis? He says, give me Thaddy Lou, more ready to play. Don't trust Johnny. I don't know.
I would tend to agree with some of that, but I think Thad Lewis showed that when protection breaks down, as is often the case behind the Cleveland Browns offensive line, he's going to try and make plays, and not all of them are going to turn out good. I'm not saying that Johnny can do any better, but I think Johnny's going to get the benefit of the doubt over Thad Lewis 100% of the time.
Right. Because I think, Matt, we know what Thad Lewis is at this point in his career. He's a guy who can come in, maybe give you a shot to win the game. Serviceable. Johnny, much higher ceiling, but a question mark. So, yeah, if he's healthy, and again, it comes back to that word, politics. There's no way Ray Farmer is going to dump Johnny for Thaddeus Lewis. It's just not going to happen.
That would be the equivalent to like a 6.7 earthquake on the football scale if the Browns decide to cut bait with Johnny.
He'd have to resign. Like Ray Farmer would have to resign because you'd have, with those draft picks, with the lack of success, like it would be over for him.
Yeah, you went basically 3 for 4 with picks that couldn't crack the roster.
You can't do it.
With the exception being that Cam Irving was woefully mishandled throughout his first training camp and was at a different position every day. And I understand they wanted to test versatility, but if you were really expecting him to compete with John Greco, he's not going to be messing around with left tackle and center.
No.
You know it's the skill set's there, and you can run him for a practice or two just to see how he adjusts to the NFL speed, but you can't do it every day. And the Browns failed him. He did not fail the Browns.
And he'll be that depth guy on the Browns' offensive line. Still a lot of upside, I think, for Cam Irving. Matt, thank you so much as always, my friend. We'll see who the Browns cut, who makes it, and if there's any surprises.
Yeah, we'll see how good I actually did during the year, how well I actually did, I should say, once the real roster comes out.
On the depth chart, that's right. So follow us on Twitter at AndyMC81, at Matt Florjancic. Email the doghouseshow at gmail.com. For Browns Insider Matt Florjancic, I'm Andy McNamara. You've been listening to the Dawg House.